From the WATE.com Digital Center, answering your legal questions. This is Ask Isaacs. Now, here's Lori Tucker and attorney Greg Isaacs.
Hi, everyone. So glad you're with us today. I'm Lori Tucker, along with our legal analyst, Greg Isaacs. And Greg, bear with us here. We have a very difficult case to talk about. It's one that really is tough to wrap your mind around when you think about a 50-year-old grandfather and his 3-month-old granddaughter who were found dead inside a home. This is in Tullahoma, Tennessee, out on the west part of our state, after a reported attack, Greg, by the family's 7 dogs. So far, no charges have been filed, but I do know that other family members have been evicted from that home because of the conditions there.
You know, Lori, we all love our pets, love our animals.
Yeah.
But you know, there's a flip side to that, and that is owner responsibility and vicious dogs.
Horrifying that the man and that little baby, 3 months old again, were found dead already, and the dogs were mauling the victims even as police got there. 7 animals.
Yeah, it was horrific, and you have a grandfather and a
3-month-old.
3-month-old. I was getting ready to look down and say 3 years.
No,
but I had
just
to,
a
I had
tiny
to
baby.
read it twice, and the dogs were so vicious when law enforcement responded to this Tullahoma residence. They had to shoot the remaining dogs. I mean, multiple times to get them to cease and desist.
Yeah, not all the
their
dogs,
attack.
but several of the dogs. And neighbors reported to police that the dogs had attacked and killed neighborhood animals, a cat, in the weeks prior, but no known attacks on people were identified or documented, at least as of right now. This happened just a few weeks ago.
You know, it does, and you know, there's another case here in Tennessee that's closer to home.
Monroe
in
County.
East Tennessee, Monroe County, where you had a 70-year-old woman who was mauled by numerous dogs while sitting on her front porch. The injuries were severe and life-threatening. In that case, in Monroe County, there were 4 individuals charged criminally.
And there were 27 dogs that were seized.
Now think about
We're talking
this.
multiple dogs in both of these cases.
27 canines
Yeah.
related to this attack on a 71-year-old woman. And these individuals have been charged criminally, 4 individuals.
Let's talk about what they're facing. Exactly.
What they're facing, and you would think that the law would be a little more strict. And I think Tennessee is a good litmus test nationally, because we kind of look at some of the model.
It seems like we are in many of these cases.
Yeah, we are. And they were charged with an E felony. Now, under Tennessee law, there are 5 degrees of felonies. An A felony is first-degree murder. B felony, other serious things such as a rape, sexual assault. But an E felony is the lowest felony we have. And,
Even when there's death involved.
well, a death would.
Where does that come into
that
play?
would make it a D felony. But still, when you have a dog that's running free, here's what the charges could be. It could range from being a Class C misdemeanor, lowest criminal offense we have. If your dog is loose, no damage. Property damage would be a B misdemeanor. Bodily injury, a bite, that only gets you an A misdemeanor, which is a little harder slap on the wrist. But think about this: serious bodily injury, and that means not injury, serious bodily injury, which is scarring.
Well, the
surgery.
71-year-old woman here in Monroe County had multiple lacerations, deep cuts, deep
only
wounds.
makes it an E felony, which is 1 to 2 years. If death is involved, that's a D as in dog, and that raises it to 2 to 4. But think about this: if it would have been human on human, or someone would have been reckless, it would have been a much higher degree of homicide, such as an aggravated assault. So, you know, I'm kind of scratching my head, and it's unfortunate that it takes something like this to look at some of the gaps in our criminal statutes. But, you know, a relatively low-level felony for what is horrific. Imagine allowing 27 dogs to run loose. I mean,
Just
it's kind
run
of
free.
like the Serengeti. I mean, you
You know?
have a pack of wild animals.
Just running around, and if they're hungry,
But-
that goes to a whole other level. Hey, let's hold it right here for a second, because we have our reporter in Nashville who's going to kind of give us the broad scope of that case in Tullahoma. So let's take a look at that. Again, no charges just yet. So we're going to talk about that on the flip side of this story.
Tragedy in Tullahoma after a man and his 3-month-old granddaughter were mauled by their own pit bulls. It happened Wednesday at their home on Warren Street. Police have identified the man as 50-year-old James Alexander Smith. A neighbor spoke about the horrible scene.
I had come home from work and saw a young lady in the middle of the street. She was screaming. I couldn't make out what she was saying, but when I came up to her, I asked her if I could help. She didn't answer, and she ran off to the back of the house while she was talking to someone on the phone. I then heard sirens. I knew something bad had happened.
According to authorities, when they arrived to the home, they found the pit bulls mauling the infant. They killed the dogs to stop the attack, but both victims were already dead. A neighbor says those same dogs killed his cat.
It was. I saw the dogs in the yard right before it happened. So I know that, at least one of their dogs was one that it killed my cat.
On the family's GoFundMe, they say the grandfather and his wife were taking care of the infant and 6 other children. Now that grandmother is having to take the responsibility by herself. On top of that, their home is now condemned. I spoke with a professional dog trainer on the danger of dogs with young children.
The reason we typically see attacks on infants from dogs is a phenomenon that is called prey drift. And it's essentially where the dog's overstimulation and overexcitement and high presence of prey drive drifts and something clicks and they start seeing that infant as a prey object.
In the worst cases, experts say you can curl up into a fetal position to protect your head and stomach. In this case, the child was too young to defend herself.
Isolation, right? So step number 1 is protect the children at any cost.
He says children should always have adult supervision if they're with a dog. Reporting in Tullahoma, Kenley Hargett, News 2.
Yeah, that little baby never stood a chance. Never stood a chance.
No, and when they juxtapose those pictures of those dogs, that German Shepherd and it looked like a Rottweiler, it really just sends chills when you think about the dichotomy of the level of power and strength of a vicious canine, and then the vulnerability and innocence of a 3-month-old.
And you were talking about the, on paper and just talking about it, seemingly lax punishment, light punishment, given the seriousness of this. So no charges have been filed in this case just yet. What could happen here?
Well, again, I mean, it would appear that the most serious, and this is the irony, because the person that would be charged, these was the family's own, family's
So
own
one is
pets.
dead.
Yeah, one is dead, so it would be the remaining, I guess, the grandmother, and she could be charged with 2 Class D felonies with a sentencing range of 2 to 4 years because death resulted in an unsecured dog. But, it takes something extreme to put a spotlight on something like this. And, typically, we have state laws and then municipalities, and we'll touch on that in a minute, have requirements, but it's surprising how lax they are. And let me tell you how pervasive attacks by dogs are. Annually, 4.5 million people receive a bite by a dog. 800,000 of those require medical attention. 15% are committed by stray animals. The American Animal Hospital Association, it's really kind of ironic that you would have to have such a thing. I guess there are records when you have somebody in the ER that as a result of a dog attack.
I would hope so.
But they analyzed the breeds that they saw injuries from the most. 22.5% were pit bull bites.
And that's the largest number.
Mixed breeds were close with 21.2%, and German Shepherds were third at 17.8% of the bites. Now, on average, there are 30 to 50 human deaths annually from dog bites. And that number has stayed fairly consistent over the last decade.
Interesting. And, this is going to bring up, and it already is on social media on this very story, people are weighing in on pit bulls. And many are saying, hey, these are loving dogs. If you talk to a pit bull owner, chances are they're going to say this is a loving dog.
Well, a loving dog
but then
is
you
loving
look at the
till
propensity.
it's not.
Exactly. And
And-
we just heard from that animal expert who talked about that prey mentality. And when that when that switch flips, all bets are off.
All bets are off, and that's
And
the
these are
debate.
animals.
And I think we have changed the designation. Now there is an enhancement if you are a convicted felon and you are involved with a dog that is involved in an attack or injury. There's an enhancement.
That's really interesting. So if you're a convicted felon, you cannot own a quote unquote dangerous dog, correct? Am I correct with that?
The law is that's an overstatement. That's
Okay.
generally correct, but it's an enhancement. But you get into this debate of don't demonize the breed. It's the owner. It's kind of like, is it the gun? Is it the shooter?
Yeah.
And you have to look at statistics, and statistics show that the leading breed that's involved in human attacks and bites is a pit bull. That's not to say there's not nice pit bulls. There's not to say whatever.
Sure.
But when you look
But if
back,
you had 7 Totos, you're not going to have this outcome.
But when you look back at the history and the genealogy of certain breeds, I love my English bulldog that recently passed, but they were bred to fight bulls. That's why they look the way they do.
Same with my boxer,
Pit bulls have incredibly powerful jaws,
jaw muscles, yeah.
jaw muscles, etc. So, a little common sense, but regardless, the homeowner, the pet owner, has a responsibility. Now, let me tell you, just from a civil perspective, how pervasive dog bites are in Tennessee. Statistics from the Tennessee Department of Commerce and Insurance. That's the bureaucratic agency that oversees insurance claims. There were 314 dog bite insurance claims filed in Tennessee last year that cost, the total value was $11 million.
Wow.
So for someone to say it's an overreaction, not my dog, not my this, it's a problem, and it just remains to be seen. But
Hey,
when you-
we always appreciate your comments, and we have one here I want to share with you. This is from Showpoodle691. Thank you so much. And guys, weigh in here. Let us hear from you. This says, playing Russian roulette all day, every day. People should have the breed they want, but most, not all, are irresponsible. It is the breed. They are nice until they aren't.
Well, it reminds me how years Siegfried and Roy, astounded people in Las Vegas with their trained tiger act, and they would put their heads inside the tiger's mouth, and they made millions and millions of dollars, and they talked about how safe these exotic animals were until
They weren't.
they weren't.
Yeah.
Where one of the pairs was nearly fatally mauled. But again, you need to be a responsible pet owner. But when you see these extreme cases, I'm scratching my head that you have a 3-week-old baby,
A 3-month-old, but
3-month-old,
in proximity.
in that environment to a dog like that.
Yeah.
Then you have a 71-year-old grandmother attacked by a pack of 27 dogs.
While sitting on the porch.
Yeah.
So
So these are extremes, and most people, and it's weird, the dichotomy. If you live in a county, counties typically have it's more rural in terms of its demographic makeup, and there are typically, whether it's Tennessee or somewhere else, less municipal ordinances and whatever in a county. But a lot of cities, including the city of Knoxville, has requirements when you have different levels of dogs, and they surprise me because the
What you looking for? These are my notes, but you may borrow them.
Whatever. For example, and this is another.
We have lots of
a
notes
lot of
here.
cities
Legal stuff.
have a very similar thing. Under the Knoxville dog ordinance regarding dangerous dogs,
Yeah.
To be a level 1, that's the least serious, you have to have at least 2 attacks.
2 unprovoked attacks. Unprovoked attacks on the owner's property.
Or behavior off property causing someone to take defensive behavior, or bites causing minor injuries. To be a level 2, you have to have 3 attacks, a bite causing severe injury or death. So, I mean,
Well, it takes a lot to get to
me
that point.
The dog always gets the benefit of the doubt, and here's what the penalties are: muzzled and leashed when off property, post dangerous dog warning signs, microchips, spayed, neutered, and $100,000 in liability insurance. You know, Lori, it looks like the humans are coming out on the wrong end of this equation because,
Wow.
you know, when you look at these statistics where 50 people are killed, all the attacks, and these recent ones in Tullahoma and
In Monroe County.
really hit home. It looks like the law falls a little short.
A
And
lot
you could
short, some might say.
You could protect the breed. You could say it's not the breed, it's the owner. But regardless, in these instances, there is a disconnect, to me, is how anyone was legally permitted to allow 27 vicious dogs to roam.
And that's the Monroe County case. This one in Tullahoma involves 7 dogs that we know of on the property, and some of them are in a shelter now. The others were killed by police when they arrived on scene. And one thing, Greg, when we had this story, obviously everybody's absolutely horrified and at the tragic, tragedy of this. But I thought, I would think that this would set a precedent or help make the laws tougher, cases like this. But there have been cases like this before, and the laws haven't changed. We have in 2001, 33-year-old Diane Whipple of San Francisco. Do you guys remember this case? Was killed in her apartment hallway by 2 big dogs. The dog's owner was jailed. The dogs were being looked after by his attorneys. Then the attorneys were criminally charged. And one who was present at the scene was sentenced to 15 years to life for second-degree murder. Both dogs were euthanized. So there's that law in California. Now, why is that different here?
Well, a lot of things are different in California. But again, this is another, it's kind of a wake-up call. And, just like, when we talk about firearms, there's requirements when you have children around to keep the gun secured and locked in a gun safe, et cetera. Dogs, dangerous dogs, need to be secured. In Knoxville in 2024, a 6-week-old infant was killed by a family dog. Now,
attacked the baby in the crib.
Yeah, and there was no prior warning signs. The family said
Other kids have been around the dog, no problem.
Other kids have been around the dog, but you need to be vigilant because going back to that viewer comment. But most of all, not all are responsible. It is the breed. They are nice until
they aren't. That was so well put, Show Poodles. We appreciate that. Great talking points for us to get to the heart of what's going on here. Just in October, famous actor and singer Tyrese Gibson was criminally charged. This happened in Atlanta after his 4 Cane Corso dogs allegedly just kind of roamed the neighborhood and killed a neighbor's smaller dog. And recently Gibson, he got in a lot of trouble. He posted a $20,000 bond. But again, that's Atlanta. That's not Knoxville. That's not Tennessee.
Atlanta, remember the famous quarterback that was charged with
yes,
dogfighting.
Yes.
And very severely prosecuted. So, if you to say when you're having this debate that somehow they're not dangerous, not this, well, they are sometimes because people fight the dogs, they make them dangerous. But, I think, Lori, 2 things come out from these very, very horrific and unfortunate situations. One is responsibility from the owner.
Yeah.
And the second thing is there appears to be a gap in the laws regarding holding somebody criminally responsible and accountable when these horrific acts occur.
And shouldn't there be tougher laws because of the nature of this, but also as a deterrent? Wouldn't a tougher law serve as a deterrent and have people say, man, I need to make sure my dogs are fenced, make sure my dogs are safely housed, make sure they're not around children, all the things that a responsible pet owner should do.
But to me, there's a vicious dog paradox, and that is people
There is.
want their dogs to bark and stranger danger, and they want that person to be deterred and think twice before ever coming into their house, sneaking through a window. But the problem is when someone that's a neighbor or a friend or a child,
A 3-month-old baby.
a 3-month-old baby, they're subjected to that same degree of aggression and potential violence. So a very tough thing, but at the end of the day, is it the dog, the breed, or is it the owner?
So do you think the laws should be toughened up? Do you think state lawmakers should take this issue
Yes.
and try to change the law?
I think people need to be more proactive, because if you lived in an area and you saw 27 vicious dogs roaming free like the Serengeti, pick up the phone and call somebody.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, in Nashville, if you see somebody, where one of the dogs had just killed a neighbor's cat, don't worry about offending your neighbor. Those dogs need to be addressed. They need to be taken to professionals, humane centers. But,
And we don't know how long the kids have been there with their grandparents.
Right. And, civilly,
There's a lot of variables
just
here.
remember that and we're talking about criminal responsibility,
Yeah.
but Tennessee, we used to have the one bite rule that everybody, your dog got one bite before you're liable. That's not the way it is. You're strictly liable. So we did away with the one bite rule.
Still, though, again, the laws are lax
The laws are lax.
compared
So-
to other states.
Yes. So, it takes a horrific, awful situation to put a spotlight on this. But Lori, the statistics are overwhelming. The laws are underwhelming. But at the end of the day, be responsible. If you see an animal, hear an animal that you think is vicious, don't be afraid to tell someone that could intervene.
All right, we're going to leave it at that. Greg, thank you so much for being with us. And we're going to hit these high points coming up tonight at 5:30 on our newscast. Thanks so much for being with us. And a special shout out to Show Poodles. Thank you for those excellent remarks and that insight. We appreciate it.